welcome to this week's Stacking to Win It for Week 14. I'm Jason Gilbert, Gilbo11. With me is Justin Elick at Big Italy 42. You're talking stacks this week. You got four for us, and I know you're not a Jameis Winston fan, which is shocking if people have followed our pods over the last few weeks, but you like him still as a top stack this week.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you've got the best receiver matchup on the board, and it doesn't matter how terrible the quarterback is, facing a Saints secondary, I mean, that's a spot where you want to be. We saw Matt Stafford was tremendous against them last week, and aside from Eli Manning, that was a big bust against the Saints this year. I mean, it's pretty much been like wash, rinse, repeat, face the Saints, especially with a big elite wide receiver. And, Winston did a good job of spreading the ball around last week. I'll give him that. And I won't say he was accurate. He never is. But he did a good job of getting guys involved last week. And, Cameron Brate is another guy. He had a monster game last week. He's a guy who's quietly had a really good season this year. Been kind of up and down, which is why he's perfect for GPP. But he's got 3 games at least 20 DK points. Saints, of course, bottom 10 against tight ends. Bottom 10 against anyone who catches a football. But that running back situation, we're hearing that Jacquizz Rodgers is going to get more work moving forward this week. The Saints have actually given up a lot of touchdowns on the ground, but less than 4 yards per carry. So quietly a situation where they've actually been pretty good. But we all know the way to target this team, and that's with the passing game. And I'm not looking at any of these other Tampa Bay wide receivers. This one's pretty simple for me. It's Evans and Winston, which might be the most popular stack of the week, aside from maybe Brown and Roethlisberger. But, that one's simple. I'll throw in Brate to kind of try to get some more exposure. But, the sky's the limit with this squad here.
Yeah, definitely. They're tied with Indy in terms of a team total this week and, home matchup. I like Brate's prices across the industry, obviously a valid kind of GPP tight end. Top stack number 2 here, looking at the Steelers, who I think – you have him as a top stack, but probably a contrarian one. I think people will get bits and pieces, but I don't know if they're going to get the whole pie.
Yeah, that's the great thing about the Steelers is, you don't have to overthink it each week. There's kind of that added new wrinkle now this week. Ladarius Green had that monster game last week, and we kind of were, I won't say expecting, but waiting for that to happen last year for him when he was in San Diego. It never really happened, but finally happened this year, and really every week, for the Steelers, it's simple. If you don't even want to stack Roethlisberger, you don't have to. Play Brown, play Bell, and this in a situation where their team total about 25 points. They're playing at the Bills. I don't know how bad the weather's supposed to be, but I know in the Midwest there's quite a bit of snow. So if this ends up being bad weather, this could be a Le'Veon Bell game where he just sees a ton of touches. And it's not too far-fetched to think that he could see 30-plus touches this week because, you look at what he's done the last couple weeks. He had 35 touches last week, 27 the week before, 38 the week before that. 36. So this is a guy that's a volume runner, and I think he's the guy you need to make sure you include in your stack. That's not to discount Antonio Brown, but I think there's other wide receivers that can definitely come close to that total. But like we said before, it's David Johnson and Le'Veon Bell than everyone else this week. So if I'm stacking, 2 players trying to be creative with this one, I might just go with Bell and Green, try to get myself a little bit of value there and hope that a lot of the production comes through the on the ground for the Steelers this week.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. One thing we look at, the one thing I want to talk about is Ladarius Green. FanDuel, DraftKings, completely different pricing in terms of kind of paying up. Obviously on FanDuel, 5,800, 39 still on DK. But as we saw, big upside. He's been kind of that vertical threat now over the last 2 weeks that we've seen. So Buffalo's obviously a team that can give up points, in abundance.
Yeah. They're a team that, a couple of years ago they were a good defense, but that's not the case anymore. They're a bottom 10 defense this season, and they've had a couple games that they gave up a lot of points.
Yeah, definitely. Contrarian stack, we've been kind of hinting over the last few pads. Kirk Cousins, Jordan Reed if he's healthy, Deshaun Jackson. But also, if Jordan Reed sits for some reason, I think he's progressing to play. But is Vernon Davis a guy you toss in?
I guess. I don't think he has a whole lot of upside. I think probably Crowder, for me.
Crowder would be a better pivot.
Yeah, probably Crowder if I'm going to add somebody else. I don't see Crowder having a huge game, but I think due to volume alone, whenever Reed is not in there, we saw last week Vernon Davis, obviously a much tougher matchup, but Davis didn't see a whole lot of looks, and I think he had what was it, 5 catches, and 3 of them came on the final drive when in the final minute and a half, I think it was. So I just don't see him as having a whole lot of upside. Jackson, obviously, the one with the monster upside there. So I'm with you there. I think that if Jordan Reed doesn't sit, you put in Crowder. But if he plays, I mean, no one's going to pay his high price tag this week. And I'm sure he won't play 100% of snaps or probably anywhere close to that. But he's still going to get red zone looks. He's going to get third down looks. So, we've seen it before with top tier tight ends. Rob Gronkowski, when he was banged up a couple of years ago, came in. I think he had one game he caught, 3 touchdown passes and had like 4 targets. I'm not saying he's going to put up those numbers, but those are the kind of looks that he's going to get if he plays in limited fashion. And, obviously risky at his price, but if he comes in and scores 2 touchdowns at 2% ownership, then, tight end pool isn't particularly deep this week. That could pay off big time.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, and as you point out, not a lot of people are going to be looking to pay up for him, but, he's basically a wide receiver at this point. I mean, if you put him in that wide receiver pool, he's fairly cheap.
Yeah, absolutely.
So value stack, you're looking at Seahawks, and, you've been talking about basically you're not surprised if they put up a lot of points this week against, a pretty banged up Packers defense, and they're all relatively cheap here.
Yeah, I mean, Wilson's the one that's kind of the exception there, but 66 on DK, under 8K on FanDuel. Still isn't a bad price for him, especially with his upside. You got 9 quarterbacks higher than him on FanDuel. So, putting in perspective, he's within $1,000 of the most expensive quarterback, but he's also within $1,000 of Blake Bortles and Sam Bradford. So, he's right in the upper part of that middle tier where I think he'd go lower owned because, like we said with the Packers, this is a team that looks like their defense is better than what it really is. And but then when you consider what the matchups were, Houston, Osweiler, arguably the worst quarterback in the entire NFL right now. That's probably not even an argument. Then Carson Wentz, who had that kind of hot start, but has played like a rookie since then for the most part. And then gave up 42 to Washington, 47 to Tennessee, 31 to Indy, 33 to Atlanta. So, I mean, I think their defense is talent-wise closer to those numbers where they're giving up 30 points a game, upper 20s probably, than it is for the last couple of weeks because an average defense has given up less than 20 points to teams like Houston. So I'm not a believer that this defense is really even good at all.
No, and the cool thing with Seattle is, I mean, you list here, you talk about Lockett, Rawls. I mean, there's a number of ways you can go. Jimmy Graham, Doug Baldwin. I mean, they got 5-6 options you could mix around and mix and max stacks with.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of ways that you can go. Like Thomas Roller mentioned is cheap, especially on DK. I don't know, the Lockett thing, I feel like he's going to be – you mentioned in the last pod that DraftKings price, crazy cheap, but still only – what is it? I guess he's $700 above minimum on DraftKings, 600 or $2,100 above. No, 600 above on FanDuel. I'm mixing up the two. So he's close to minimum on both sites, and I think he's going to be a fairly popular play. But, if you're going to go ahead and play this team, really the only guys you're missing out on Jimmy Graham and Doug Baldwin, who obviously have big upside, but – it's not a value stack if you go with those guys. And I think if you're someone who's stacking, 50 lineups, something like that, you're going to play Doug Baldwin with Russell Wilson, 80% of the time, 90% of the time. So I think It's kind of a little bit of a contrarian move to skip those guys and hope you can get some touchdowns on the ground. And, at Green Bay, like I said, the weather in the Midwest right now, it could be one of those freezing Lambeau games, and there's probably not going to be a whole lot of deep throws down the field.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So, I mean, definitely a way you can go this week. Anyone kind of missed the cut? This week is a weird week.
Yeah, I don't love a lot of offense. As I was looking at an interesting one because we keep talking about how we think that could be a shootout, and they really don't have much of a running game still. James Starks 2 weeks ago looked like he's getting workload, and last week, absolutely nothing. I know there's one that you like that I'm on board with, and I hadn't really thought of it as a stack, but I know you like the Colts, and I could definitely get behind that one this week too.
Yeah, I do like the Colts. I mean, I like Luck and Hilton. Hard to toss in Moncrief just given the fact that he hasn't been a tremendous upside guy. I mean, he's a guy who finds the end zone, but not a guy who's going to go for 700 and a touchdown. But,
I mean, I like that one. I think the only other one for me is the Falcons, but they're so expensive, and I would need some clarity on Julio Jones and Mohamed Sanu before that. I mean, if we find out one of those guys is going to be out and one's limited, you get a cheap stack there with you go Matt Ryan, Taylor Gabriel, Devonta Freeman, and that's a pretty nice stack there.
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, definitely a situation to kind of keep an eye on in terms of injuries. Let's wrap things up with the stacking to window for Week 14. If you want to check out Justin's article, and he kind of goes into detail about each stack, and you can check out the projections as well. It is up on the site. Be sure to check out the rest of our Week 14 content.